Hi guys.
There we are. I'm just gonna. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's evening for Kat, morning for me. So we literally all are around the world. So today I get to be a student as well, and it's kind of exciting. I've studied up on the subject that Kat's going to be delving into, and yeah, I'll just kind of give it away. Go ahead, Kat.
Thank you very much. Okay, today we're going to be talking about the importance of words, and we touched on this quite a lot with what I got started with anyway, which was Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements. It's a book I've been looking for. It obviously it's always on my bedside table, and now I need it. I can't find it, obviously. But I really, really recommend you get that or you read up on it. It's very succinct. It's very powerful. And it does get you to take those first steps. So just to recap is be impeccable with your word. And this for me took ages and ages and ages. And I'm a lot better than I was, but you know. So that means that you can't say anything bad about yourself. So that's kind of good because it does get you changing that mindset. And it means that you just start saying, you know, being kind to yourself. All these things that we were talking about last webinar when we were doing not reactive, we're being proactive as opposed to just responding. Well, I can't remember how we phrased it. I'm sorry, it's gone. But you have to be proactive. When you're proactive, you know, you're sort of acting just before things are going to happen to you. And it's very, very important that you start immediately catching yourself when you're saying, God, I'm so stupid. No, you're not stupid at all. You're doing the best you can with the elements you have at hand right now. So that's the first thing. You're going to make slip-ups, even if you know you shouldn't be doing this. You're going to make slip-ups, obviously. We're human after all, you know, that's all we are. And that's the first agreement. You make that agreement with yourself, you know. And the second agreement is don't take it personally, you know. And I love the example he gives in the book is like if someone's walking on the street, you know, and they turn to you and they say, you're fat. Well, that becomes, you know, you take it personally, like, I thought I'd lost all this weight, or do you think so? I thought I was doing okay, you know, and immediately you take this on as your own problem. It's nothing to do with you. Most people are in their own little bubble, their own little world, and it's very personal to them. And so when you start marketing or doing anything, you know, and you're trying to get into someone's bubble, it's very, very important that you don't take things personally because you will, you know, people will make nasty comments on Facebook or whatever it is, and that is not personal. You mustn't, you know, take that personally, or in your own private life, you know, sometimes can be quite, the words can be quite powerful and in a nasty way, but they don't mean it. They're just having a hard time, or your spouse or your mother, or, you know, people do tend to, you know, out of spite, maybe just let it rip, but it's really their own story. So don't take things personally. That was the second agreement. And the third one was, I forget what it's called, but I do know it's like, ask questions. Know how to ask questions. Don't be afraid of asking questions, because when you ask questions, you will get a reply. And the example I love is that it makes, I tend to make lots of movies in my head constantly. And so, you know, for example, if your kid is coming home late from school, I mean, it just goes. There's, you know, not much you can do about that. But what you can do is say, well, hold on. I'll just, you know, I'm busy doing this right now. So I'll just wait, and I'm concentrating all my might on this, whether it's chopping a tomato, reading an article, or, you know, here on a hangout, whatever it might be you're doing. You just put your whole might into concentrating what you're doing, and that film stops. Okay, so you can concentrate because there's nothing you can do about it. Whatever is happening, if it's danger or not danger, you'll get to know about it. And when you do, you have to be proactive. You have to sort of get up and go, and you don't have to be like, oh, I knew this was going to happen. Oh, I knew. You don't have time for this. Okay, well, just so don't make those films. Ask a question when when you see the person, or, you know, if your kid's late from school, say, oh, well, you know, what happened? And like, oh, the bus was late, or, you know, whatever it might be, something silly like that, and you've been, you know, racking your brain. So throughout your everyday life, don't take personally, be impeccable with your words, and stop that film, you know, just stop those films. And I found personally that when I stopped these films in my head, there was like this void, just this big void that I personally was filling with love, because I was being impeccable with my word. So it was like, oh, it was a new journey for me. It was really, really exciting. I was so happy, and, you know, things were going on. And so invariably, this happened at a stage when I was falling out with my husband. It was that particular stage when you're just falling out, and he'd come home really sheepishly because he didn't really want to come home because we'd have rows all the time. And I was doing all this, and I was just chopping whatever or doing whatever. I was quite happy, and he'd be like, "Oh, hello, you know," and it would turn the situation around completely. Which was very, very nice for me anyway, and for him and for the whole family, because there wasn't so much bickering. So that was really, really nice. And then the fourth agreement you make with yourself is the agreement to do your best. And we discussed this a little last week, is to be present. If you're present in the moment, like I was saying, as opposed to being off in cuckoo land and what's happening to my kids and the dogs run away, whatever it is, you're off in cuckoo land somewhere. You're not really present to whatever you're doing. You're sort of doing the actions, but you're not really. So if you can be present in the now, you're doing your best. And that's a way that brings all this 4 agreements to a whole. Okay, it's very, very important. And there is a 5th agreement made by Don Miguel's son, I forget his name, but Mr. Ruiz, Don Ruiz, and he's got a 5th agreement, which is, about love and how everything comes from love and just ignore the rest. But he explains it a lot better than me, and this isn't the object of the game. Here we're talking about words and love. We'll do another webinar. Please take note.
I love that. Yep.
So that's what we've already discussed, and it is so important. I don't know. I highly recommend everyone gets that book, because it really is life transformational for a whole load of people who might be a little nervous, who might take everything personally. It does help a lot, and just so that you get your own state of mind, your own peace of mind, your own. You just bring it down, and it means that I was talking about this when you were in Dominican Republic, and I wasn't able to share. Well, I thought I was sharing my screen quite happily because I had to change tabs. Nobody saw anything but my beautiful face, so that was quite funny. I don't know. Anyway, so I've got these out now, and we rehearsed with Brittany here, and we can't see them, so we just have to. Please raise your hand if you can't see. Anyway, so this is very important, because that means that because you're out of your head, so to speak, in a badly way, you can sort of concentrate on putting good things in your head, in yourself, and you can concentrate on growing inside out. And that is the name of the game, really, because once you've grown inside out, you can give love all over the place. You can't give love if you sort of projecting hate on yourself and telling yourself nasty things and taking everything personally and, oh, what a stupid girl I am. Look, I didn't even fill my glass up. Oh, la, la, la. You could go down. I mean, I've been there. I've done that. I don't want to go, I don't even do that anymore. Thank you. I try very hard anyway. And it does afterwards become second nature. And what that does is that it means that you raise your energy levels up. So, like, I'm going to share my screen now. So please, Brittany, if it doesn't work, say so immediately. So there you'll see us all, and we'll go to the ultimate consciousness. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see the funnel.
Great. So this is the what is called the ultimate consciousness, okay? And generally you're starting from here and you're aiming to go up here to up here, ultimate consciousness. So generally when you're in shame and guilt, you're not in agreement with yourself. You're not with the first agreement, and you're saying nasty things about yourself to yourself. We'll see the effects of that physically in a minute. But I just want you to get the general gist of this, okay? So you're living in a contracted life, basically. You're not, you're in fear. And although anger is a lot higher than shame, for example, shame is the worst one you can be. And I lived for many, many years in shame. Grief is okay, but fear and desire, I mean, all these are really sort of contracted, negative, yes, negative, I would say that negative energy vibes, because you can't expand, you can't do anything. And anger is when it starts to sort of tip a little bit, because anger, you're starting to move that energy, you're starting to transform it. And in fact, all these are in sort of, when you have atoms, water can be in several states. For example, you can have water in ice, and it's a solid state, and it doesn't have the the bonds holding the atoms together do not have much energy needed because it's in a solid state. So, for example, all these will be in the solid state, and then you start, giving energy, getting energy, and you boil your water a little bit, and it'll become gaseous. So you have a lot. No, it'll become liquid. Sorry, before gaseous. So you have a lot more energy in the liquid water from the atoms will still be held together, but you have a lot more energy. And this is when, you'll start coming up here. So you'll start going to pride and courage to try out new things. You're starting, that water's becoming to move a little faster, and then it's neutral. Okay, neutral. We're still only at 250, and we're aiming to get it at 1,000. Well, 1,000 is Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, these sort of people. So we're far from that, but we can get as close as we can. So neutrality is still just at 250, and then you get to willingness. You see, there's the tipping. I mean, when you get to anger, it's when you start providing energy, and all these are sort of, you're starting to tip towards that, and acceptance, and then reason. And when you get to love, you're at 500, which is the mid range. And this will be when you're like, and starting to get in the gaseous phase. So when you're waiting for your water to boil for the pasta, for example, when you're cooking pasta, it's just, starting to get boily, and then you get the steam coming off. And when you have steam, it means you have so much energy that the molecules can leave, can break from each other. Whereas in the ice, they can't break from each other because there's hardly any energy, and they're very contracted. Here you'll start getting a lot more energy, and so you can have joy and peace and enlightenment eventually. I like to call that gratitude myself. Gratitude for me is about 750. So it's more, you see here we're in an expanded, and the colors here, well, if you know anything about the X-rays, etc., the colors, the waves of the colors sort of expand a bit more, but that's physics and chemistry. We won't really go into that much, but you can understand that you're starting. I mean, when you think of shame, I don't know, when I think of myself and all those years that I did live in shame, I was ashamed to be alive, ashamed to be well spoken, ashamed of my accent, ashamed of everything and anything. I felt really just like a box. I couldn't move really, because every move I made, I felt ashamed because all my molecules were really tight together. And so to make this a little bit more comprehensive, there's this Japanese Dr. Emoto who did some studies, in fact, and he did, they believe more in the spirits and stuff. So his initial work was on rice grains, okay? But rice grains, there were too many variables to take into account. And people would say, well, the rice grain did this, or the rice grain was that, or there was too much atmospheric pressure, or it was a hot day or not a hot day, and there were very, very many variables to take into account. So then he did water. He did a scientific experiment on water. And water, well, because we're 70% of water, your body is 70% of water. We know that there's the tide has an effect on, well, the moon has an effect on the water with the tides. So we know that, other external factors do account to water. They do have an effect on the water. So it enables life, and that's where we all start. We all start from the womb, where it's an aqueous, atmosphere, and we all go in our own evolutionary way to being a baby and to being born. So there's a lot of water on Earth, etc. So he did these experiments, and he started by putting these. He put the water in a little bottle, and then he would say things to it, and then he would freeze it. So, for example, this water is in a lake, from a lake, and this was the water before. So they just took the lake water, and then they froze that, and then they had a priest, very Reverend Kato Hoki, the priest of the temple here, you can see, and all this, and they made a prayer, special prayer for the lake, and they took the water afterwards and they froze that. So they got these two, they got these two differences. So you can see that this would be like, if you're saying, just everyday life, nothing's happening to you. But if you start being nice to yourself, you see how much nicer. I mean, that's just beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. So people weren't, happy with this. They were saying that it wasn't scientifically approved. And he got a lot of slack for this. So, and your emotions vary. So he did a lot more experiments. And what was this one? Oh, sorry, I forgot this one. This is when you start playing heavy metal. Okay, so this is when you're playing heavy metal. Your cells will do this. And this is classical music. I think it's Mozart or Beethoven. We'll see below. But so you see that anything and everything you do does have repercussions, okay, to the body. And this is all, this is if you just say the word earth, for example. I can't, yes, earth here, you're saying earth. Here you're saying the word elephant. You see there's almost like a little trump here. Can you see? A trunk, sorry. This is like eternity. So when you're saying just the word eternity, so you get yourself into a nice, sort of meditative state, and you just repeat this word to the little water bottle, and you freeze it, and then you analyze the crystals that come out. So this is family love, and you see how there's more crystals. Is that, I mean, because a family is like a unit, or one unit, but they're generally more than one family member. Yes, you see this heavy metal music. I love it. This is harmony. When you say the word harmony, this is when you say the word I love you. Very important to say that to yourself constantly. This is when Swan Lake is playing. Okay, so sometimes they would just play it. This is when you say truth. Thank you. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Now, every time you say thank you to someone, whether it's the cashier, the bank teller, anyone, this is what is happening to their cells. They're just being aligned like this at an energetic level. So people may not think that, this is happening, but it is. And every little bit helps. So the more you say thank you to people from the heart with this loving energy, the more your cells will be beautiful like this, and the more you will radiate. That's why, we say pregnant women radiate. They're blossoming and radiating because they're giving life. So, of course, all their hormones are being so loving. So the baby gets as much of, this and this as opposed to heavy metal type music. I mean, if you're building a baby with this, it can't be as nice as, harmony, for example, or, that's just, to me, just visually, you don't need much, I mean, to me, it's common sense, I could say almost, you don't really need a, degree to see the difference, what I'm basically saying. But, look at this, love and gratitude. I mean, this is just so beautiful. It looks like a huge diamond ring or something, This is when you do love for humanity, you see. So it does radiate out. It really does. So this is what Mozart does for you. Look at this. I mean, it's just beautiful. Wisdom. When you say wisdom, I mean, it's just, look at, you are beautiful. This is what, you fool. You see the difference? So when you're vibrating at a low energy frequency and in shame and everything, you're just saying all this to yourself all the time. So you can't possibly radiate as when you're, in joy and abundance and gratitude, radiating, saying, God, you're thankful and everyone's beautiful and the world is an amazing place. And, it's just, I mean, I hope this is making sense. I don't know, but anyway, this is when you say you make me sick. I mean, that's just horrendous. When I can't bear to say these things anymore. But I used to say these horror things to yourself constantly. So your word is so important. And this was again before and after the prayer. I mean, look at the beauty of the after the prayer. It is just absolutely amazing. So this is the experiment he did, Dr. Emoto did. And so when you go back to the ultimate consciousness, you have a little bit more of an understanding why shame and guilt and all these things are just, you're really doing damage to yourself. I mean, you're doing literally physical damage here. To get rid of those pluses, sorry. So you're really doing physical damage to yourself. You're breaking your cells, and you can't possibly, vibrate at this sort of love and joy with beautiful. I should share screen anyway. With beautiful, lovely patterns, agreements, and look at all. I mean, it's just beautiful. I don't know. What's your take on this, Brittany? Do you not think these are beautiful little?
I think this is amazing. Oh, I'm echoing. Can you hear an echo, or do I sound okay?
No, you sound fine.
Okay. It just must be on my end. So I, just so everybody's aware, I kind of went over this and studied this a little bit before this call. And I didn't understand it to the extent that I do now, having Kat go over it and explain it. So if I understand correctly, just to kind of dummy this down for us, Kat. What's that?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, what Dr. Emoto did was he took water in a container of some sort and actually spoke to that water. So when I say spoke to the water, it wasn't just the dead words, but he spoke with that energy. So if I'm to tell someone I love them in an authentic way, I love you, then it's the energy that's speaking to them and not just the word itself, right?
Exactly.
So if I was to say I love you, but I don't actually mean it, I'm just playing the word out of my mouth. I'm not actually saying it through the energy of what I love you carries, then it doesn't have the same effect. Am I on the right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So that, and then, so I think this is amazing. Like, so after speaking to the water, um, and then freezing it with a microscope, they were able to analyze and see the crystals, right?
Yeah.
So crystals are not available to the naked eye. These crystals are with a microscope. I know
Well,
that sounds like a dumb question, but just to
no,
make
no,
it really clear.
no, not at all. It's that,
Okay.
like, you can see snowflakes, but a
Right.
snowflake will have that shape. It's like several crystals into one, and they just disappear the minute they touch something. You put them on your hand. If you've got a glove on that's not yet warm, then you still can see the crystal. But to be able to take photos and have a kind of
Yeah.
scientific backing to it, it's
Right.
best to look at a
Okay.
microscope, and then you can take a photo and say, look, this is proof.
To get these kind of
Yeah,
photos of crystals, they're amazing.
I know.
So another thing that kind of came to mind is there's so many cases where like, and I'm not making any claims. I'm not saying this is right. This is strictly just coming from my opinion, and it's just a thought that I had when I was listening to you, is when either a mother is carrying a young baby, like growing life, and during that term or her term, she has really, really negative energy, and she's speaking really negative. She's feeling really negative. Because we have children who are born and they go 3 months or whatever, and they have cancer, and then they're fighting cancer. We have people who have never smoked in their life, exercised, and they end up with cancer, and it just boggles people's minds to what is happening. But I think that this could have like a huge effect, on no matter what we do physically on the outside. If we are speaking poorly to ourselves, and we are speaking poorly to other people in our lives, and just this is the energy that we carry constantly, do you think that this could have an effect in the long run on ourselves,
Of course.
mutating like that?
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Well,
Yeah, that's crazy. And of course, like I said, no claims here. I'm just thinking. I'm just, just the thoughts that came to my mind as you went over this. So
well,
another thing I thought of is, so when you go over this, and I think about, myself, say 2 years ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago, if I was to see this, I would say, oh, I don't know, like, how could I possibly start changing how I speak to myself in my life circumstances with these things going on around me, and these struggles that I'm facing, and these challenges, and all this stuff. Like, um, I I think this would be the first step to changing these. This is the first step to changing these things around us. So instead of looking at your circumstances for what they are and feeling like it's not time to start changing how you speak to yourself and how you speak to others, and what's going on in your mind when it comes to your language, instead of doing that, you start focusing on changing your language to change the circumstances in your life. Does that make sense? Because
uh,
I thought back to, like, when you were speaking, I thought about myself about 2 years ago, and I thought, right now I can look at this and I can say, wow, like, this is amazing. And it's also feels good because over the last year, I have been experiencing that growth in myself, where I can speak better to myself. But 2 years ago, it's been like a massive struggle to see this and actually make a difference in my life through my language after seeing this and learning this. And the only reason that would have been is because my mindset would have been, well, I can't do that right now because I have a really hard life right now. I have a lot of shit going on that I'm dealing with. And, it's in on a day-to-day basis. How do I start speaking better, or being grateful, or, whatever, when I have nothing to be grateful for? So having said that, I encourage knowledge, and saying, like, whether it's you see results right away or not, it's taking this knowledge and taking the next step into it, no matter the circumstances, because there's always something that you can find that is amazing. And it might just be the fact that you're alive today, that you have today. Whereas other people do that, you know, there's people who planned for today and didn't see today. And so that alone is something to hold on to and just start there. So I think for me, like I was, you know, 2 years ago, I was struggling and I was like crying myself to sleep and I just had no hope whatsoever. And I would have struggled with this. But if someone was to come to me and say, listen, just focus on how you speak, forget the rest. It's still happening and it's not going to change right away, but just focus on how you speak. When you say something negative to yourself, catch it and just start there, you know? So yeah, those are the things that came to mind when you were explaining, Kat. This kind of stuff is thing, and I think it can also be what I love about it is when I started my journey on loving myself and getting back, or getting not even getting back into, the first time in my life a year and a half ago is when I started to change my life for the better ever in history of my life, right? So I as soon as I started on this path, like I struggled and it was hard and it was tough, and oh, I had a point here that was, you know, it's hard to get that belief that your language and your thoughts actually control the quality of life that you live. That concept is really, really hard for people to comprehend. So I think if you were to do yourself, if you plan on changing your life, I recommend doing yourself a favor and just instilling belief that every single person who has changed their life, that has been a self-made millionaire, that has changed millions of other lives, and like Tony Robbins, for example, and the reason I use him is because a lot of people know him, no matter from kind of what road they're on or whatever, they've kind of heard his name, right? He's changing millions of lives around the world. He came from a really, really tough background. He was severely abused by his mother, who was an alcoholic. He was very, very poor, and now look at him. And I'll tell you, him and everybody in his league, they have a different thought process than the people who see that life but can't create it for themselves. And it solely comes down to this topic: how you speak to yourself, how you think, how you speak to other people, your energy, your emotions. And so even if that concept is hard to comprehend for you, I really, really recommend just instilling belief in it. Whether you fully understand it or not, just do yourself a favor and start believing and practicing it and just watch what happens. And even if, like for me, my immediate circumstances, well, they have changed, but not to like the extent that they are to change come the future, myself, just within myself, it's a world of difference. When you start changing inside from doing these and taking this kind of action and using these kind of words, it's everything. Even if your life looks the same on the outside to other people, it looks dramatically different to you. You can be happy. You can, no matter what, even if your circumstances are the same, they look so different to you that everything changes. So yeah, Kat, thank you for explaining that, because like because it's powerful, because it's scientific. So, you know, and it's on a level that we can understand. So it's not, you know, too depth, like it's on water. Everybody knows what water is. Everybody knows that water freezes and then it's liquid and then gas. Like this is just basic, you know, science that we learn in grade 5 or 6 or whatever, not even. So yeah, I don't know. Now I'm excited. I can feel the energy from it now that I start talking about it, and I can, you know, yeah, I can relate to it. So it's nice.
No, it's lovely. That's the name of the game. That's why I did start also my mission on this with just writing down every day when you wake up 3 things you're grateful for. You grab any paper and you just, you know, 3 things. And I was like in such a state that I was, you know, a bit like what you were saying, you know, yeah, well, my circumstances, my this, whatever. I can't even remember what was going on in my head. But anyway. And I remember I went to an event and I had a talk with Jay about this. He was saying, yeah, it was getting so bad because he was with his second wife. And he was saying, Jenny and I would just, we couldn't even, you know, we'd be grateful for the leaf on the third, you know, the third flower on the lawn or something, because we kept running out of stuff. And because it's true that when you start, you're like, okay, you're grateful for things, but if you have to have three, oh yeah, that was it. It had to be three different things, right? So when you start, it's like, the same. You can use the same three, which is a good start. It's the name of the game is just to start. Okay.
Yeah, that's
But
another. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
so and he had, for a whole month or however long it was to get into the habit of this. I think they were on a 90-day challenge or something. I don't know. And, and they had to have three different things. And it's true that when you start this, it's like, goodness me, three different things. And you start being grateful for everything and anything, But for example, I was, raised in England, and every time the sun is shining or there's no clouds, or, you can actually walk outside without being like this because it's pouring with rain, I'm ecstatic. And I remember my Parisian friends would go, God, Catherine, it's a dull day, the clouds are out. And I'd be like, yeah, but it's not raining, and yeah, all right, dear, But it doesn't, to me, I couldn't stop that joy because, so in England, it does rain a lot, which isn't, it's okay. We're used to it. On, get the anorak on and off you go. It's just, that's the way it is. But I mean, it was like, and now I live in Bordeaux and it's kind of warm, the other day it was 18 degrees, like, wow. And I'm constantly, no matter how old you are, certain things, you've been ingrained with this when you were little, it's like, oh my God, it's not raining, So every little thing will be, whatever, but you should really start with just this, three things you're grateful for every day, and make them different for 30 days, and then you'll see, and make fun of it, make it fun. It's got to be fun, because otherwise it's a little bit boring life,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. It has to be fun. And the more you do it, the funner it gets, actually, because the happier you are, the better you feel every day. So it does become fun. Another thing, and I can't remember where I heard it. I'm sure it's off of a book somewhere, out of a book somewhere. But when it comes to like inner dialogue, our words and stuff like that, it's first is to become aware, right? We've talked about this, and when you were talking about doing the three things of gratitude, another thing, oh no, that's not, sorry. When you're doing like your three things of gratitude, a lot of the time when you're writing, like you're sitting there and you're thinking about it, and you're like, well, I'm grateful for my son, and then your mind starts to kind of try and mess with you. Well, of course you're grateful for your son. Like, no, think of something else. Like, you can't just, and it starts to play this dialogue in your head, and then you're like, well, okay, and then, and you're fighting with yourself. And so I think actually I started to do this, and I never continued to do it. I don't think I really required it, because when I started it, I didn't need it as much as I would have needed it a year ago. But when you do that, just have a little note beside you and write down what your mind is telling you. So, I'm grateful for my son. And you just hear that dialogue. Well, no, you can, there's got to be something better. Just write down, there's got to be something better, and just look at it. Well, no, I am grateful for my son. Thank you, but you're wrong. And I am grateful for my son. And just, really, that's a way to truly become aware of what's happening. And when you write it down, you're like, you can laugh at yourself, right? Like, you can be like, oh my God, like what? It is quite funny what we say to ourselves. It's funny that the mind and how we speak to ourselves, and we do it without even knowing it. So the first thing is like, become aware. And it's good when you do your gratitude work in the morning, the three things, which is quick, it takes a few minutes and you can just do it out of the way. And when you're doing it in the morning, you'll start to see that dialogue is there, even when you're doing that small task. And the reason I recommend doing it when you are doing the gratitude work is because in that time, you're conscious. That in those moments when you're doing your gratitude work, you're consciously thinking about what you're thankful for. You're conscious of your mind and what's happening. So throughout your day, when you're on autopilot, it's going to be tougher for you to recognize that inner dialogue. But when you're conscious in a moment already, that is a good time to catch that dialogue and recognize it for what it is, and give yourself a moment to laugh and say, well, that's silly. Don't judge it. Don't make it negative. You might think something and catch it and be very surprised that you would even think that to yourself. But don't judge it. Just write it down and giggle and say, well, moving on, and keep going, and then you can start becoming aware. And yeah, I started to do this, and it was quite fun to really think, to catch myself and what I was saying, but I didn't carry it on. But I think it was just because when I learned about it, I didn't really need it. I was already kind of on that path through a lot more struggle. I think it would have been better if I, knew it a year ago, whatever. But like it can, these little tips, there's tons of ways to walk this journey, but these little tips that we share are tips that we choose to share because it can fast track you, as opposed to other ways that you can take where there's a little more struggle. And that's the whole idea of this, is if we, Kat or I, have had a struggle in an area, we want to talk about it with people because it might be able to fast track you through that struggle using these tools and these ideas and these insights to get onto the other side a bit quicker, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we have with our coaches and mentors, right? Is with their tips, their insights, their experiences, their stories, their failures, their challenges, being able to hear these things, we can fast track past them or through them quicker. So yeah, that's the idea of this anyway.
Yeah. And also I like the way you have of writing your little words you're catching yourself. That for me is the first agreement.
Okay. Yeah, being impeccable.
You see this is what she was saying. Brittany was saying that tips and things, but we're all talking about the same thing, just using different words, but these are all steps.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I would highly recommend, Brittany, that you continue your 3 gratitudes. I do this every day.
Oh, yes.
But it's on my little app. Do you remember I keep going on about this app?
Yeah, I think we talked about that app a couple times. And
I'm going to get it again because it's just too good. Right,
I still haven't downloaded the app, but I do gratitude work every morning.
Oh, well, that's good. But it's the 5-minute journal. It's on my meditation.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a $5 thing, and I think it's the best $5 I've ever spent. And I do recall I had an iPhone 4 for zillions of years. I've only had this new one for maybe a month or two. Well, November, so it's getting on, but it feels like ages anyway. I had this iPhone 4 for years, and I can tell you here the iOS stopped at 7, and it was up to 10, and I couldn't renew, and I lost my app.
Oh.
And I was just lost for words. I just. And when I had it every day, some days I wouldn't, oh, well, it doesn't matter, I forgot today. Or I have not missed a single one since I've got my phone.
Wow, awesome.
So,
there's also, is that the same app with the quotes or the?
Yeah, it has a quote on, I can show you quickly.
You sent me one, was it last week or something, that was really relevant to what was going on in my life?
Oh God, you're going to see all my stuff. It's silly stuff, And
you can get right close. We can't. It's too much reflection. You can't see very well. You can just see the pictures.
Oh, hold on. I can do today's. No, I've done. I'll do. Well, okay. Like this morning, can you see? Well, we don't really want to see what I said, but you've got the 3 things there. And then it says, what I will do today to make it great. So you're planning ahead, even if you didn't. No, you can't see a thing.
No, it's too much reflection.
The daily affirmation. And then you have your little photo. And then in the evening, you just, what 3 things I was grateful for and how could have the day have been better. And on that one, I always write best day ever because, JJ taught me that. And it's true that if you're sitting there going, how could the day have been better? Well, you can write, a whole bloody chapter on that. But if you're day, right, it's the best day ever. You like you said, some people aren't here to have that day, so just be grateful to be breathing, and
yeah, I think JJ, he said, yeah, exactly, it's great to be breathing, and that is so cliche, but at the same time it is so real. Like, you just watch the news and you can be grateful for your life. No, me neither. I don't watch the news either, but like, honestly, that's what you say.
Write that down at the topic, why we have to stop watching the news.
Yeah, jeez.
That's one of my great horses. I'm like galloping on that one because that's just, that's death assured.
Yeah, it is. The news.
I don't know what they do in the States, but here in France, everyone sits down to eat the evening meal at 8 o'clock in front of the news. I mean, if there's,
if there's the worst time to watch the news, it's before you go to sleep.
Well, when you're eating, can't Dr.
Oh, yeah, and when you're eating.
I mean, oh God, I just. doesn't even bear thinking about. So people think I'm a complete airhead and I don't know anything because I don't know. We've got the elections, the presidential elections. Well, we knew what was happening in the States, so there was no problem, even in the news. But here in France, I don't even know who's up. So I just ring Mum and I say, what do you think, Mum? She goes, right.
Yeah.
We're on the same sort of wavelength. But unless she starts saying, National Front or something, then I might forget. But that's another story. We won't talk about that at all.
Yeah, the news. Yeah, but that's what I was saying is, watch the news for an hour and you'll see how much you have to be thankful for. But anyway, where was I going with that?
Cliche about how
how we can be grateful to breathe. And it sounds cliche, but it's real. There was something I do that. I just lose my train of thought and I just oh, it's gone. I'll catch it.
We'll catch it another time. We'll catch it at a better time.
Yeah, exactly. I can't remember what I was gonna say, but I do, out of this call, I have a couple subjects that we can talk about. I know that we have our calls kind of lined up to what we're going to talk about, but on the next one, I have a couple. And that's what happens, right? It's all really just one big puzzle. All the pieces fit together, and
they do.
It's very true. And that's this thing too. Is I have a list of audiobooks that I listen to that is endless, and they all say the same thing. Honestly, like it's you can learn whatever way you choose, but it's when it comes to having a successful life, and when I say successful, I'm not saying you're rich, financially rich. I'm saying like you do what you want when you want, you do what things that make you happy, you spend your time with the people you love and you want to be with. Basically, you live the life you want to live. That to me is success. And honestly, the people who achieve this in the one life that they have, they're all doing the same thing. And when it comes to the mindset and the daily habits and the rituals and the living life through principles, and they're really doing the same thing. If it's sustainable success, we differentiate there. But great call. And really great call. We're at 1:45.
Good. So yes, I have to move along really fast in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I think that we've wrapped it up pretty good. It's okay if it's a short call. It's good. Sounds good to me.
There was a lot of information. So just to recap, 4 agreements, get the book or blog post, or I got tons. Get the book. I would highly recommend reading up on Dr. Emoto's. I could put the link to my articles, and get those 3 gratitudes going, because that I think is something very simple to do. Things that are generally simple doesn't mean say they're easy to do. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a simple thing to do, and it can start changing your world more than you actually think. But I would definitely say start those 3 gratitudes.
Wonderful.
As a start.
Well, great call, Kat. Nice seeing you. And we will see each other again next week. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching. Mwah. So much love to you.
Namaste.